This is the Weigh-In podcast by Benoit Chestnut, and on this week's Weigh-In, we're going to talk to you about Jake Paul. So, little news surrounding Jake Paul and the potential matchup with Tank Davis, Jake Paul and the potential matchup with KSI, and that is what this week's Weigh-In is about. Jake Paul. So let's kick this off. So we kick it off. Jake Paul is in the midst of coming between a contract to fight Tank Davis. Now, this clash, I like this. I'm going to tell you why I like this. Because it's Jake challenging himself, and we're getting another Tank Davis fight. Now, it might not be what we wanted, Lamont Roach, because we all know I don't say Davis is a runner, because he's not, but I don't think they're going to take the Lamont Roach fight right away. I think it's going to be some time before we see Roach, which is good for that, Going to be real good to hopefully we get that too. But let's talk about this right here. Some of the things we want to sit here and say right here. Let's do this. Think about it. Lemon. Let's think here. Jake Paul. Tank Davis. That's a fight we all want to see. That's a fight we all want to get. And I think this is something that we didn't even know we wanted to see that, but the thought of that has gotten the illuminations here. So we know one person that would definitely be happy, and that's Mayweather, because not too many individuals have been able to beat Tank and not get knocked out. So you wonder, will Jake become another victim of Tank Davis? The vicious knockout. That's going to be real interesting because it looked good. It looked good. If they come down to this fight, it looked good. Now, that's going to look real good to get Jake and Tank Davis, because look, Davis wants to bring something to the fans, wants to bring something. Coming up and signing Jake Paul after Canelo backed out of Jake Paul. Now we get Tank Davis. Okay, Jake, you lining them up. You're going to get Chávez. Now you're going to get Tank Davis. So now we getting boxers here. I'm seeing a trend here. Now the questions have been answered here. You got to continue boxers. And I think that's something we're getting at here, is that Jake is now scheduling boxers. So this could look like he's done with that game of, hey, let's get Pizza Man off the street. Not saying he ever did. But, the guys, okay, I fight in bare knuckle. I fight in this, or I do this, I do that. These are boxers. Chávez family, roots deep. So when we talk here, it's really in the manifest here of Jake Paul is moving in a direction. And then, Jake Paul's moving in a direction where we're getting it. Now I start to see we're getting those matchups we're going to like to see. Like that Canelo Crawford. We got that. Now we got Jake trying to set up Gervonta Tank Davis. So this is going to look good as a next Tank Davis fight and as a stepping paralysis for Jake. If Jake takes, I say this, if Jake gets serious, we all know the hands of Paul have been known to knock out. So at this point, and the hands of a Tank too. So, it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting. If they could pull this off and get it signed, it's gonna be interesting. I'm telling you, this Tank Davis Jake Paul fight is probably gonna bring I think it's gonna bring a lot of eyes, because all them Tank fans, and then you're gonna bring them Mayweather fans that want to see Jake get knocked out because remember he took Mayweather's hat. So now you're gonna have all them that Mayweather, them Floyd fans come out and want to see this because you say, oh, Tank Davis could potentially beat Paul bad in there if it's a good night for Tank. So I think you're gonna see a lot of eyes come out to this because they're gonna like this. This is gonna be monumental. And if it's one word to say to Canelo, this could have been you, Canelo. You could have been the monumental fight. But now it's Tank Davis, and I think that's perfect. Because now you're gonna have Tank Davis, Jake Paul. We haven't got it quite yet. Nothing has been, officially dousted, but I think we're due to do very well. Maybe if it comes out right, a September fight. That would be nice. So it's gonna be very interesting to what we may get out of this Jake Paul. What we might get because it's like because now you got Chávez and then you're lining us up, Tank Davis. Now just keep going with the boxers. Line it up. Like that. You line up all them boxers. Because now you're going to start showing people who have always wanted to try to say, hey, Jake wasn't about Jake's not about this. Jake's not that. You're going to show those people, no, Jake. Jake is. No, he's not. He is. He just fought Chávez. Chávez is a boxer. He just fought Tank Davis. Tank Davis is a boxer. You can't. People love to say Jake is not taking things serious. That this is just another joke, another business acquisition. That conversation I'm on here before. We've shut that down. Somebody who just wants to do it once or twice, you do it once or twice. You don't go start a whole promotional company. You don't come in there. You don't get a partner. You don't sign I would say, the biggest boxer surrounding women's that lines up Amanda Serrano. You don't go line all that up. Then sign even more boxers, undisputed champions, more and more if you're not serious about the fight game. And what we're still waiting on is PFL did say Jake was going to make that debut this year. So that's something that we can keep in mind too. We're supposed to get a PFL fight with Paul. So that's going to be interesting too. So keep the eye out for that because that's going to be coming because he was supposed to give us a PFL fight. So they say this year he was going to make that debut, if that hasn't changed. So this is something that's going to be very interesting. If we can get that Jake Paul PFL fight in that debut, that's going to look really good for us because now we're going to see a lot of good Paul this year. You go out, you beat Chávez, you go out, you do a hard fight against Tank Davis, and then we get that PFL debut. Hopefully get that PFL debut before the end of the year. That's going to be really good. And that's something, going to look nice. To see that PFL debut, you see a Jakey doing PFL. And the great part is, as Dana White and Jake would say, Jake, no, we're gonna go Dana here. He's not doing it on the UFC, your organization. So you're losing eyes there. Because had you let him be on UFC, you would grow some eyes, but now he's gonna be on PFL. So now we have this where it's kind of almost in that manifest where it's like, okay, he manifested his way that you're not the only organization, Dana White. He moved to another one. And that's great. That's a really good thing that he has done here. And it's only going to get better and better and better and better from here because now Jake Paul is opening all these holes in his story. And it's just all these holes in his story that are going across for Jake. And I say that because now you're starting to all these avenues he can go towards. And that's something that is really good here. Now you're lining up that PFL. I think the honest question we should ask ourselves here: will he have a boxing world title first or a PFL world title? Who knows? But what we get at right now is we haven't even got to that PFL debut that's supposed to happen this year. What we got right now is a really good scheduling Jake. Like you look at it, we haven't seen not one person that is not in the name of boxing. Like, listen, they want to say Jake's not this, Jake's not that, but I wonder, Do you say KSI is not a boxer? Do you go over there? They all started in the same time, but getting that KSI Jake Paul, it's like they said on WWE with Cody Rhodes, finishing the story. That's Jake finishing the story. That is Jake finishing the story. It started out with Logan losing to KSI, and then it's saying, all right, now it's Jake's turn to get in there and get KSI. But it hasn't happened. They they dragged it out so far, saying, okay, we're gonna fight, we're gonna fight, we're gonna fight, we're gonna fight, we're gonna fight. But they didn't. And the one reason I say that is because you drag it out for so long and you don't, you know what I mean? Like you drag it out for so long and then you don't do it. You bah, bah, bah. Now it's like, hey, we sent you a contract that was more than enough where you're going to make out well. Why are you not wanting to go into this and that beneficial? Why you don't want to fight? So KSI has long behold always ran from Jake. We all know that. That's nothing new. That's nothing old, or they have just kind of dodged each other in a way. It is what it is, but to hear that this Tank Davis Jake Paul might happen, that Jake Paul Tank Davis could be something coming, could be something that is a good matchup. That is going to be a good fight. No matter where you put that weight, no matter what you try to do, I can't wait to see that Jake we get in that fight because now he's got this Chávez. Go ahead and take care of Chávez, and then let's see what we get out of Jake. Let's see the kind of Jake we get in this Chávez fight, and that's going to stem and light up the next Jake we get for that Tank Davis fight. This isn't just no big fight. This is about going to the top of the throne and saying, let me take this guy. Let me knock this guy off. And when you go there and you try to do it, well, you got to do it. Because you go there, you get beat, you're going to have a happy Mayweather to see you get beat bad, too, to get knocked out. But you go in there and you do a Lamont Roach, you stun everybody. Now we got a good Jake. Now, like we already don't have a good Jake. We do have a good Jake now. But now we got a nothing can stand in his way boxing big era Jake. And that is something that I think is very, very well to be said about for Jake, for something like that to happen and to put yourself in that opportunity to have and succeed very well is just absolutely an amazing Jake for us to get. And I think Jake scheduling lately has been very good. It has been very good. It has been a very good Jake. And that's something that should be really good, and in all likelihood and signs. You get a good Jake. That's the best kind of Jake to receive right now. It's the best Jake to even want to get because you're scheduling what looks to have been the last couple of fights that he has tried to schedule have been pro boxers, current pro boxers. What we could say is a lot of them have belts currently or have had belts. So world champs, definitely high caliber boxers. This is going to get interesting because they're lining themselves up like they want to put Jake to that canvas, and that's going to be interesting to see Jake get put to a canvas because if they could pull that off, now that's going to be very interesting. That's going to be very interesting if they could go do something along that magnitude. And I only say if because it's not easy to knock people out. It's not. From a fan standpoint to learning to box, it's not easy. It's not going to happen like that. It won't. It's not. It really isn't. And that's why I say we're getting a good looking Jake. That's why I say what we get may make the all difference in this. Let that be said that, And let it be said here on the way, and we're calling it Jake Paul to win against Chávez. Jake Paul. I don't think Chávez is going to win that fight, Junior. Jake Paul's going to win that fight. Paul's going to win that fight. Jake Paul's going to go ahead and take that. And I'll tell you exactly why. Because Jake is at a time right now where he wants to win. He wants to continue to grow himself, his career, his boxing, on all fronts. He's trying to grow. So that is one thing that we know very well here for Jake, is that he's trying to grow everything that he's doing. And that is really good. That is really good. That's something that we're post we're people would say post prime Jake. No, we're not post prime Jake. I think we're still getting a learning Jake, you know, because now we're scheduling boxers, and now we're not scheduling people who don't have a strong boxing background. Now this is gonna be interesting. This is gonna be interesting. It's gonna be very, very interesting for Jake. We're gonna get this where of what we want. Now, in other words, Jake's scheduling of fights looking really good right now because of these wanting to do boxes. Will we get that KSI? I don't think so. I think it's going to be, I hope not, but I feel like it's going to run into another failed negotiation, because what KSI wants and Jake wants, I think, is two separate things, but they're trying to do it. And even Most Valuable Promotions co-owner, Jake's partner, he posted, he said, "This is what I offered him for a contract. Like, don't look at us like we're not trying to schedule KSI." And I agree, they're trying to do it. They're trying to build this in a way where they want it built. And I think that is a good thing, because that's typical Jake to schedule that money made fight that we want. The fight that we're looking for. We're looking for that Jake fight. We're looking to see that type of stuff. That's the thing we're looking to do. I think it's going to be very well, to get a fight of that magnitude of Jake. And that's something that we want to see. We got Jake, possible Jake Tank Davis. We know we have coming up Jake and Chávez. So it's gonna look good to how does Jake fare out against Chávez? It's gonna look good. I think it's gonna speak a little bit to the true craftsmanship of Jake if he can come in and do what many think he's gonna do, and that is knock out Chávez. If he can do that, you're gonna put yourself in that category that you're doing something right, and he has been for a long time, and that's something that a lot of people tend to try to overlook. But Jake's doing something right. Jake has been, and that's just a true testament here that Jake is getting something done. Jake is not just turning around and saying, "Oh, this is a action sports guy," or no, these are boxers, and that's why it's getting real interesting. These are boxers. I don't know why it took so long for us to have Chávez, but why this didn't happen earlier. But it's at the right time. It's a good fight. It's a really good fight. It's going to be a really good fight for Jake. And I think that because Chávez is a strong. You understand that boxing family is very strong rooted when it comes to boxing. Very strong rooted when it comes to boxing. And to line up a guy like that, I feel like in some ways it's an honor to have that fight like that, to have Chávez to have a fight where you can prove yourself on a stage like that. That's a way that I believe Jake has done something very well. And I think that's something for Jake that he's got to be proud of himself for. And I think you You put that fight along with what may be potentially happening if you get Tank Davis, then KSI, or you get KSI, then Tank Davis. It's looking like a good potential lineup schedule for Jake. And I think that's really good. And that's kind of the point here, that Jake is doing a really good thing. And I think that's really good for Jake, because that's something that you've now started to do well. You know, you're not saying grab action sport guy here or that guy or this guy. You're going, hey, this is a boxer. This is a boxer. This is a boxer. This is a boxer. That's a boxer. Boxer, boxer, boxer. And you're scheduling these guys. Like, he sat there and almost had Canelo. Like, that's gotta. They're doing something over there. They're doing something over there. Because if you're almost scheduling Canelo, now you're on the in route to schedule Tank Davis. Come on. Come on. Like, we're getting good prime Jake here, because he's learning Jake, and it's growing prime Jake, because now we're getting boxers, and now we're getting boxers scheduled back and forth, and we could get now Tank Davis. Whoo, all right, Jake. Fans of Jake Paul about to see some good stuff from Jake. We about to see it. We gonna see it. And even the big celebs that are probably following Jake, they're like, wow, Jake Tank Davis. It's gonna be a good one. It's gonna be a good one. And that's why I say, like, you gotta, as they always say, focus on what's in front of you. You know, still schedule Tank, but focus on what's in front of you. Chávez. Let's knock out Chávez. Don't just beat him. I want him knocked out. I only say I want him knocked out because you got to show them that when you come up against, I would say, the most skilled opponent he's ever faced, you gotta get the work done. You gotta really get it done. You gotta. So I kind of almost think here, what we need is a knockout. We need that Jake Paul knockout. Put him on the canvas like you did many others, and let's see it. Because if Jake can do that, keep fighting them boxers so we can get you a belt. So we can get a belt. So we can get a belt on Jake. So we can get a belt on Paul. So we can get it on Paul. So we can get a good old Jake Paul belt for Jake. So we can get that Jake Paul belt. I think it's at a good he's at a good height and manifest here where it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. For those who think, oh, Jake's never gonna get there, Jake's never gonna have, no, he gonna have it. Especially if he fight Tank and he do well against Tank. Trust me, Jake gonna have that belt. It's not gonna be too long before Jake has that belt. Jake gonna have a belt now. And that's something we have to say to ourselves. How long will it be before Jake gets that belt? It's not going to be long. Let me tell you, it's not going to be long if he schedules Tank and can do what I think he's going to do against Tank Davis. But you got to get in there, and you got to do a Lamont Roach style. You got to do a Lamont Roach style. You got to, everybody counts you out, and you're like, I ain't out. I ain't out yet. I ain't out. Don't count me out. Mm-mm. You know, mm-mm. You got to go in there. Got to go in there Lamont Roach style, and that'll get the job done real nice. Because that's the way you got to do it. There's no other way to look at it. No other way to get it done. No other way to do it either. You know, no other way to do it. Mm-mm. Not when you're going in there Lamont Roach style. No, 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 no. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. I don't think so. But midst even that being said, I think we have a good Jake. I think we have a good lining up Jake. I think we're in an era right now where Jake is going to almost stick to the scheduling of boxers, And I think his MVP is doing good stuff. I think right now he's just got to not fall off the path like we do before we get a guy who's been boxing here, boxing there, and then you kind of just pick. Okay, this guy was from this league, yeah, league. Mm-mm, mm-mm, mm-mm. No more of that. No more of that. No more. Nah. We got to get something where we can kind of look at it and say, this is a typical Jake. This is a Jake we want to get. This is a Jake we're looking for. And that's what I say, this is what we're trying to do. We want stuff where it's like, hey, this is Jake. This is a very well pull that we want, that we're looking for. And I think that manifests as anything, in the way everything comes about it in terms of Jake, we're going to be getting a very well good Jake here. And I think that's something that's got to be something to be said here. You're getting a good Jake. You're getting a Jake that's scheduled Chávez, and that's still the same Jake. That still, goes in there and says when you look at those press conferences, you can tell that's still the same Jake. That's still that Jake that we get. That's still Jake that is very confident that he will have a world title. That's Jake that's still confident that he will have a lot of stuff, and that show that there's a lot of things with Jake that he's still very confident in having that belt. He's still, very confident in the belt. And I say that because, you look at Jake, he schedules fight here. So like we scheduled Tyrone Woodley, didn't win, Tyrone Woodley again. So, you get these two Woodley fights that almost are interconnected because it's like you would have felt like it was going to go same, but not really. Because when you think about that, second fight, Woodley gets knocked out. So it kind of flips the script almost. And you say we've gotten four or more fights where we've gotten a really good looking Jake. So that's where I say, we've got that. You got a half Woodley where it was first one was good, but you get a second where you feel like more can be done, and then you knock them out. So I feel like we've had four more fights or more where we've seen a high level craftsmanship Jake. Where we've seen a really good looking Jake Paul. And I think that is the difference because when you see a good Jake, like when you see a really good Jake, I think it really does testament to what goes on because you gotta boxing is that thing where it's like, you have all these organizations, all the organizations that hold these world titles. And boxing is that sport where you always want to complete the circle. You want all the belts. Some boxers, not all. And I think, in terms of Jake, you want to put yourself in the name of greats, but you got to do it by, like he's scheduling now, boxer, 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 you know. But with that being said, this was just a little episode on Jake Paul and the upcoming Chávez and the news of a potential Tank Davis fight. So like, comment, subscribe, share. This is another epi of the weigh-in. I bring these to you guys because this is what I want to do. Bring you guys continuing the streak this year, getting it done. So with that being said, this is the Weigh In by Benoit Chestnut. And in the beginning, I forgot my little, and normally Sebastian Romero, but we will get back to our regularly scheduled program soon. But this time I didn't forget. So this is the Weigh In by Benoit Chestnut. And we will, Sebastian Romero, and we will get back to our regularly scheduled program soon. Weigh In out.